Good afternoon, it's Sunday, February 21st, and this is IBA News broadcasting from Jerusalem. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu today downplayed controversies surrounding remarks made by IDF Chief of Staff Gadi Eisenkot, who last week spoke about the rules of engagement in confronting terrorists. Speaking at the start of today's cabinet meeting, Netanyahu said debate over Eisenkot's comments was blown out of proportion and was futile and primarily used for political gain. Netanyahu said that the Chief of Staff basically stated the obvious and that security forces operated according to the same guidelines. Speaking to a group of Bat Yam students last Wednesday, Eisenkot said he didn't want to see a soldier empty a gun magazine on a young girl with scissors, implying that he supported a measure of restraint in the Army's opening fire regulations, while emphasizing that the tools at the soldiers' disposal were adequate. Netanyahu urged debate over the remarks be put to bed and that everyone move on to more important issues. And turning to the ongoing violence that shows no sign of abating, this morning soldiers shot and killed a 16-year-old Palestinian who attempted to stab them in Hawara near Nablus. Earlier, security forces arrested a 17-year-old Palestinian girl armed with a knife at the Tepuach junction near Nablus. Near Hebron, troops arrested a 14-year-old Palestinian after he attempted to open the door of an army vehicle and stab the soldiers. Today's thwarted attacks were the latest in a series of violent incidents and stabbings over the weekend. More on this report from IBA's Margot Dudkevich.
Over the weekend, the old city's Damascus Gate was the scene of a number of stabbing attacks. Last night, police and border police deployed outside the gate, thwarted a stabbing after they succeeded in overpowering an 18-year-old Palestinian teenager who pulled out a knife. On Friday morning, 2 border policemen were lightly injured, one in the hand and another in the head, by a 20-year-old Palestinian terrorist who was shot dead by security forces. In Judea and Samaria, a number of violent clashes erupted between Palestinian and security forces. Soldiers shot and killed a 21-year-old Palestinian after he attempted to run them over at the entrance to Silwad, east of Ramallah. Another Palestinian was shot and killed by soldiers during clashes that erupted at the entrance to Beit Fajal, south of Bethlehem. Unrest was also reported in Hebron, where police yesterday arrested a 13-year-old Palestinian armed with a knife. Staff Sergeant Tuvia Yanai Weissman, who was murdered Thursday evening while trying to stop 2 Palestinian teenage terrorists from stabbing shoppers at a Rami Levy supermarket in Shar Binyamin, was buried Friday at the Mount Herzl Military Cemetery in Jerusalem. The 21-year-old father of a baby girl served in the Army's Nachal Brigade. The 2 14-year-old terrorists armed with knives entered the supermarket without being checked by a security guard at the entrance to the store. They cased the supermarket and then began stabbing shoppers before an armed civilian opened fire, shooting them. Weissman was stabbed in the upper part of his body as he tried to disarm the 2 terrorists. He died shortly after from his wounds. The 2 terrorists, both from Bitunia near Ramallah, were injured and are being treated at hospitals in Jerusalem. Shortly after the attack, IDF forces began mapping out the terrorists' homes in preparation to demolish them. Police summoned the head of security of the supermarket branch in order to determine if the security guard was negligent in his duty. Margot Dudkevich, IBA News.
Earlier today, the Shin Bet security agency announced that a shipment of drones that were meant to be smuggled into the Gaza Strip was uncovered at the Kerem Shalom crossing this afternoon. The unmanned aerial reconnaissance vehicles were allegedly intended for the use of terror groups in Gaza. Public Security Minister Gilad Erdan defended the actions of border police outside the old city's Damascus Gate, who were filmed Friday shooting a Palestinian attacker while he was lying on the ground. The video clip, aired by Al Jazeera, said 20-year-old Mohammed Abu Khalaf, who stabbed 2 border policemen, was shot with at least 50 bullets after he fell to the ground. Erdan told reporters it is impossible to second-guess terrorist actions. In some cases, after terrorists were shot, they attempted to attack again, he said. Israeli security officials noted that in some instances, security forces continued to shoot at assailants even when they were on the ground, fearing they may be carrying a bomb. In related news, police are slated to close a probe into a policeman who shot and killed a Palestinian teenager who carried out a stabbing attack with a pair of scissors near Jerusalem's Machne Yehuda market in November. Officials said the case would be closed since there was no evidence that the officer's intentions were criminally motivated. The officer, who happened to be off-duty, was questioned for shooting 16-year-old Hadil Wadja Awad, the schoolgirl who carried out the attack along with her 16-year-old cousin. The two stabbed and wounded a 70-year-old Palestinian whom they mistook to be an Israeli. The two cousins were shot by the off-duty police officer and an armed citizen. Awad was killed, but her cousin survived and was later charged with attempted murder. Investigation into the incident was launched at the recommendation of the then Attorney General Yehuda Weinstein, amid claims that the officer continued to shoot the teen after she no longer posed any danger. 30 years after he fell captive, new evidence has surfaced regarding the fate of Israeli Air Force navigator Ron Arad. According to a report in the Lebanese Daily Star, Arad died 2 years after he was taken hostage in 1986. He was buried in a forest in a Lebanese mountain, and only 10 years later, when his pictures were released, did those who abducted him realize it was Ron Arad. The report cited Mufid Kuntar, a Lebanese man accused of collaborating with Israel, who served as a commander of one of the organizations who fought in the civil war in Lebanon. According to Kuntar, Arad was held captive by a Lebanese group who did not succeed in interrogating him. He was beaten and tortured, and his captors reportedly found him dead in the shower. The new evidence claims contradict previous evidence and are inconsistent with information Israel has previously obtained about the case. Syria, the stalemate in Israeli-Palestinian peace talks, and other regional topics were among the issues discussed by U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry with his Jordanian counterpart, Foreign Minister Nasser Judeh, in Amman today. At a joint press conference, Kerry said a provisional agreement in principle has been reached in ending the Syrian conflict. Kerry also met with Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas, who informed him that the Palestinians will continue to demand a full halt to the settlement construction as a condition to advance the peace process. Kerry is scheduled to meet with King Abdallah later.
And I believe that in the conversation that we had, we have reached a provisional agreement in principle on the terms of a cessation of hostilities that could begin in the coming days. It is not yet done, and I anticipate that our presidents, President Obama and President Putin, may well speak somewhere in the next days or so in order to try to complete this task.
In regional news, at least 46 people were killed in a twin bombing in the Syrian city of Homs this morning. Meanwhile, Syria's President Bashar al-Assad said he is willing to implement a ceasefire, but only if rebel forces and their international backers such as Turkey do not take advantage of the cessation of hostilities to gain ground. In a weekend interview with the Spanish newspaper El País, Assad said he wants to be remembered 10 years from now as the person who saved Syria, adding he cannot be sure he will still be in head of the country then. Next month marks 5 years since the uprising began, plunging Syria into a bloody civil war where at least 250,000 people have been killed. The Syrian president's interview in Damascus occurred as Russia announced that UN peace talks between major international players in Geneva aimed at ending the conflict in Syria were postponed, but that consultations between key nations continued. Among the hundreds of emails sent by former U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, publicly released today over the weekend by the State Department, some reportedly related to her thoughts on Israel and Prime Minister Netanyahu. The emails were sent from Clinton's private server when she served as Secretary of State and revealed behind-the-scenes discussions on Israel in the White House. One email sent by then U.S. Ambassador Martin Indyk in 2011 refers to Ehud Barak's split from labor, its ramifications on the peace process, and its effect on Netanyahu's coalition. At the time, Indyk cautioned that Tzipi Livni, then head of the opposition, was intent on bringing the government down. There were also details of Livni's emails to Clinton and the latter's thoughts. Another refers to the stepping down of former Israeli National Security Advisor Uzi Arad, who was forced to resign in the wake of the Shin Bet security agency's suspicions he was leaking sensitive information. Shmuel Wellenberg, the last remaining survivor of the Treblinka Nazi death camp, died at his home in Tel Aviv at the age of 93. Wellenberg was among a group of Jews who, in August 1943, decided to fight the Nazis and escape from the camp in Poland. While many were shot, Wellenberg managed to run away despite suffering a gunshot wound to his leg. He used to say that the uprising at the notorious death camp informed the world of its existence. More than 800,000 Jews were killed at the camp. Wellenberg's tale appears in his autobiography called Surviving Treblinka and the documentary film The Final Witness. The president of Poland also awarded him with the country's highest military medal. He is survived by his wife and daughter. Israel is the biblical land of milk and honey. It's also the land of many wineries. Well, Israel's first whiskey distillery is getting on its feet. IBA visited the site just to make sure the whiskey is real. Here on the south side of Tel Aviv is the Milk and Honey Distillery, the country's first, where they'll be turning beer mash into the kosher water of life.
We get the mash going inside the 3,500 liter still, and we heat it up. The alcohol evaporates before water, so we heat everything up. Alcohol evaporates, goes up the neck and through the line arm. It collides with cool water, and then it go back to liquid and go out from here. We actually, measure the percent of alcohol, smell it, taste it.
What makes this Israeli whiskey?
We got an advantage here in Israel because of the hot climate. Whiskey ages faster. We can age whiskey in the Dead Sea, the lowest whiskey in the world.
They'll be making about 1 million bottles a year. Israelis are not very big whiskey drinkers, and Milk and Honey are plying their kosher brew for the international market.
We want kosher whiskey, so we're going to go for everyone that wants kosher whiskey. And we're going to go abroad. Of course, we want to sell in Israel, and it's a nice market, but the big market is abroad.
The idea for an Israeli whiskey started among half a dozen friends. They brought in whiskey expert from Scotland, Jim Swan, who is their master distiller.
It's going out for the customers at 50%.
Oh, 50?
Yeah, 50% alcohol. And actually you can smell, it's pretty sweet.
Whiskey takes a minimum of 3 years to age in a barrel before it can be sold. So to get a cash flow going, they'll be selling a new whiskey, otherwise known as moonshine. Now this is a new drink in Israel. Israelis aren't used to drinking something like this.
Actually, you're very right. It's new in Israel. We don't have new make spirits here. It's only beginning now. And you see around the States that people drink it a lot. It's called moonshine over there, but it's pretty similar, and we are sure that the Israeli customers would love this one and will buy it.
So you're paving a way here. You're making new traditions in this country.
Yeah.
Well, good luck and l'chaim. Well, the Milk and Honey Distillery will be opening a visitor center this coming March and is located at 16 Hatria Street in Tel Aviv. Israeli director Udi Aloni and the Arab-language hip-hop film Junction 48 won the top prize as an audience favorite at the Berlin International Film Festival. The film tells the story of a Palestinian rap star and his girlfriend who live in the mixed Jewish and Arab city of Lod. The film also took the Panorama Audience Award for Best Fiction Film. Another Israeli film, Who's Gonna Love Me Now, took the audience prize for the Panorama Documentary Film section.
It was like a call for me to find a different strategy to my Jewishness. And this was only to create the voice with the Palestinian together, but as a Jew. That's really, and Mahmoud Darwish, that was very close friends when he wrote, let us walk together in two different paths. Let us walk together and let us be kind.
I think it's very easy for Palestinians to identify with the movie in a way, but it's still a revolutionary movie because it doesn't talk about the way we Palestinians are usually represented to the world. We are representing ourselves by our new generation without trying to prove anything to anyone. With our goods and bads, we are trying to represent what is the real new generation trying to do without making reality looking any better or any worse.
I'm excited that it's going out, and I'm sure, I'm not saying that everybody's going to hug it in the Middle East, for example, but I'm going to get a better, I think we're going to get a better reaction, that it's going to open a debate. It's going to open a stage, and I think it's very important. And the movie is not here to give solutions. The movie here is to raise the right questions. And here it's not an occupier feeling sympathy for it's not the master feeling sympathy for the slave, so I will talk about your pain. No, I'm sorry I took your stage.
We're getting off to a new start of this week, and here's a list of 5 good stories that may make our lives just a little bit easier. A new government plan aimed at reducing the price of basic food products kicks off this week with the aim of significantly lower consumer expenses ahead of the Passover holiday. A red light for electric bikes and scooters in Israel. New restrictions designed to increase pedestrian safety will be approved. Riders will have to be at least 16 years of age, ride only on designated bike roads, and will be subject to fines for traffic violations. The Knesset this week will approve new legislation that will finally establish the status of foster families as an official unit that is entitled to benefits. It will also grant foster parents authority to decide on special matters which, up until now, they were barred from doing. The law is dedicated to slain terrorist victim Daphne Meir, herself a foster child, who was murdered last month in an attack at Otniel. Her family also fostered 2 children who will be present at the plenum when the bill is approved. The first Arab-Israeli startup school is set to open this week in Kfar Qasim, northeast of Tel Aviv. The school hopes to integrate Arab-Israeli entrepreneurs into the high-tech industry. The tallest solar tower in the world will begin construction this week in the Negev desert. The tower is designed to make solar energy more cost-effective and will cater to at least 10% of the country's energy needs within the next 4 years. We're taking a look at the local finance, and with no currency trading on Sundays, the shekel remains the same, while share prices on the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange were up. Here's a look at the mid-afternoon numbers. Turning to the weather now, and according to the forecast, bring out your umbrellas. It'll be rainy most of the country with scattered thunder showers. It'll snow on Mount Hermon, and flood warnings are in effect for the low areas. The rain is expected to petter out by evening. Here are the forecasted highs and lows at home and abroad for the next 24 hours. That's our broadcast of IBA News for today. Please join us again tomorrow when Laura Cornfield will be here to bring you the latest breaking news from Israel. I'm Ariel Sullivan wishing you a good evening and shalom from Jerusalem.